Folks, welcome back to the Wanneroo channel. Hope you all are doing great. For tuning in here to our new reloading 223-556 project. This is the first time on the channel we have done anything with 223-556. And so this is going to be definitely an exploratory mission here. I've always been a 30 cal guy, and I like 300 blackout, 7.62 NATO. Obviously, there's a lot of firearms out there chambered for 5.56, and it's one of those things where eventually I just succumbed to the inevitable and said, well, okay, we are going to go ahead and give it a go. There's nothing wrong with learning new things and experimenting, and so, hey, let's go ahead and get to it and get stuck into it. So I've been wondering what we're going to call this project. I always love to come up with creative names. And as you all know, not only have we had ammo shortages over the past couple of years, but also the price on a lot of stuff these days is just getting stupid. I mean, anyone out there disagree with me? And especially even basic things like getting any sort of 223 Remington or 5.56 ammo. The prices at the gun stores and stuff, now you can get it in bulk a lot of times a bit cheaper, but you know, it's getting to the point where if you don't reload it, I mean, I guess if you want to buy and pay these prices, but definitely reloading, I think in the end is going to save a little bit of money and reloading it yourself. But some of these prices are just out there. $18 for 20 rounds of 223, are you kidding me? And so, you know, we have to be kind of a bit savvy and get self-sufficient, obviously. And there's also, obviously, there's been, I'm sure all of you have heard, all of the different rumors and everything about, you know, production from Lake City and all that stuff, you know, having issues. But I digress. What are we going to call this project? Well, I was sitting there thinking of creative names, and I thought, for whatever reason, I was like, I want my M193. And then I remembered, that sounds like I want my MTV. Now, for a lot of you kids out there, you're like, what in the world is MTV? Well, you missed the good times back in the 80s when we had MTV. It was basically the precursor to what you guys have now with TikTok and stuff like that. Good times it was with MTV. Of course, sadly, pretty much MTV is pretty much all but gone. But we did have a good time with that back in the day. So we're going to call it Project I Want My M193. Now, if you shoot or want to shoot 5.56 or 223, then you know what M193 is. It is the old school 55 grain bullet round, basically, that was used for many years until the new SS-109 came about in the mid-80s with a 62 grain bullet. And there's still a lot of countries these days that are still shooting the 55 grain full metal jacket bullet. You know, so it's one of those things where it kind of, the 62 grain pushed it a little bit to the side, but it's still being manufactured all over the place, and plenty of countries are still using it, and some say it's even more effective than the 62 grain. And as I got into, with 5.56 here, trying to kind of figure out, well, what components are we going to use, what powder? I have to say, eventually I would like to go with some heavier grain bullets, maybe some 69 grain bullets, but I'm like, you know, we need to start with the basics. And we just want to go out, we just want to shoot, you know, and I'm sure I'm like a lot of you guys. You know, we just want to go out, shoot a basic cartridge, whatever, in our ARs or whatever similar rifles that we're using. And yeah, we just need a simple, straightforward load. So let me explain what I picked and why. First thing is I got Starline Brass. Now, Starline Brass, I have to say, I have been impressed over the years that I've been using it. To the point where I'm almost addicted to buying Starline Brass, even when I kind of don't really need it. I don't know, I just keep buying it. And the thing is with their product, I find is for the money that you pay, you get a good quality product. So it's kind of a thing of, it's not as expensive as other brands out there, but the quality still seems to be there. And you can also buy it in bulk, where some of the other manufacturers, it's a little bit harder to actually do that. Not impossible, but a little bit harder. And a lot of times Starline will offer stuff in bulk. Now, obviously, in recent years, Starline has endured plenty of issues with high demand for their product. So naturally, that's been an issue for them at times, trying to keep product in stock. But I just think for what you pay, you get good quality. And I went ahead and just decided to go ahead and just go with Starline Brass here. So this is going to be the brass that we're loading. The other thing, too, that I looked into, and I've done this before, but I wanted to double check again. Starline Brass, from their own words, basically is ready to load. Possibly what I might end up doing is chamfering and deburring these mouths real quick and just giving that a quick go before we actually load these. But that will allow me to basically skip a step and of resizing these or trimming these or whatever. We're supposed to be good to go out of the box. So that'll help facilitate this project moving along and keeping it moving by having brass that's pretty much good to go. So Starline Brass, we're loving you. I know a lot of times this is sometimes hard to find because, like I said, the demand is so high right now, but kind of is what it is. Bullets. Well, a lot of choices out there, obviously, for 223 bullets or 224 bullets. I picked the Hornady bullets, and a lot of times, understand, guys, whenever I do these projects, one of the things that I always try to aim for, not always, but it's a thing of, I try to keep it so that if I do a project, it's going to be using something that you guys can find too. Not some oddball thing that was made in 1988 and it's been sitting on someone's shelf ever since then, and you can't find it anywhere else out there in the world or whatever. That doesn't, I guess that serves maybe a purpose in some situations, but I want commonly found stuff that pretty much, you can go in any gun store just like me, and at Cabela's or your local gun store or online or whatever, and actually find these. And I had no trouble. I actually, before I do projects a lot of times where I'm looking for something commonly available, I will actually go out and check all sorts of different stores, and I'll check online stores, and I'll see availability. I didn't find any issues with availability with these Hornady bullets. Hornady bullets, been using these for years and years. They do a fantastic job. I think the accuracy is good. It reminds me of Starline Brass. They make a quality product, and the price is, relatively reasonable. It's what I'd call maybe middle-of-the-road pricing. I love using Hornady stuff. The bullets are awesome. And so decided to go with these because also we're trying to replicate that M193 load. So I think these should fit the bill. We'll see. In terms of powder, well, what can we do with powder? Now, this was a tricky one because, again, I'm trying to basically, if I do a project like this where I want my M193, you guys probably want your M193 too. And we have to have a powder that is readily available. And also, too, here's the issue we're having these days. Look at the powder increases, the price increases that have gone into effect at the beginning of this year in 2024. Powder prices have gone sky high. Some of these rifle powders, they're asking 50, 60, 70 bucks, over 70 bucks for a pound of powder. And basically the way they describe it, with all the stuff going on around the world, those prices aren't coming down anytime soon. So I had some of this on the shelf that I had bought, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 years ago. I don't know. I remember paying in the 30s somewhere. But I looked around, did some research. There's people that have had great success with TAC rifle powder in 223 and 5.56, and they've gotten good accuracy out of it. I don't think it's the fastest powder that you could use for these. So in other words, in terms of max velocity, it sounds to me like this is probably not the powder maybe to go for. But we just want a good shoot and accurate load. And so if maybe our feet per second is a little bit down, I'm not as concerned about that. The other thing is with TAC, and I looked around again for availability on this, prices on this that I have seen, it's in the 40s. So with this ram shot TAC compared to some of these other powders they're asking, 60, 70 bucks for, again, I'm trying to find some value here, and so that's why I'm going to experiment with this. And I'm not too fussed about it, because if for some reason, don't know why, but if this doesn't work for me, well, no problem. We'll try another powder. There's other powders I can use. So we'll try something else if it doesn't work. And that's the thing about these projects for y'all. You guys get to see all the stuff I go to trying to find a load. Sometimes it works nearly right out of the box. Other times I have to experiment a bit and try to figure things out. So that's what we'll do. If it doesn't work, we'll try to find something else. But hopefully it works out. Now in terms of primers, I didn't bring them out on the table, but we're going to be using the standard CCI number 34 primers. I've used them in 300 blackout for ages now. And they're good quality, solid primers that just do the job. So why change? No point in changing. For a die set, I had to decide what to go for. Obviously, there's all sorts of different manufacturers out there. I did decide to go ahead and step it up a little bit on this and get the Redding dies. I've always been very happy with Redding dies. Now, you're going to pay a price premium on these. You're looking, I think the price premium on these is, probably with Redding dies. A lot of times you might even pay double. But I've always found the quality and the product, whenever I, let's say if I resize brass, the Redding always seems to kind of get me better in the ballpark. But again, you pay a bit more for these die sets. But, it's one of those things where, hey, I use all sorts of different manufacturers. I'm not totally tied to any manufacturer. I have die sets from pretty much just about everybody. So this is just what I happen to pick out. So hopefully it's a good choice for me and it works out well. As I said, I've never had any issue with Redding dies. In fact, they've always performed very well. So we got a 2 die set here. We have our resizing die, and then we have our seating die. So, and I imagine our crimps as well. But so we'll be playing around with these and trying these out and see what we think with these, and hopefully they do a great job. And do what they need to do to get me to where I need to go. So looking forward to trying these out and seeing how things work out. And again, if for some reason, if these give me trouble or whatever, which I doubt they will, I can always get some other brand or whatever. But I'm pretty confident these are going to do just fine. So in the end, folks, that's going to be our project. I want my M193, and I want it at a reasonable cost. And I don't want to pay these horrendously inflated prices for a lot of stuff. Obviously, folks, when you reload, you do have to make initial investments in things. You do have to get things like die sets. Maybe you have to get some brass, whatever. Also, these days, be aware, folks, it used to be you could get surplus 5.56 brass from the military, and they would sell it to private vendors. Those vendors would then sell it on and process it. But now my understanding is, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, if you have other information, pretty much now all the surplus brass the military puts out there, they require these vendors to shred it into scrap metal. So unfortunately that huge supply we used to have of surplus brass is gone, and you've got to buy Starline Brass or some other brass. I think Top Brass is another company where they pretty much recycle range brass and get it all prepped for loading, and then you buy it basically in that condition. So yes, that's another thing that's kind of tightened up supplies too. All that surplus stuff has gone away. But look, folks, we're going to have a fun time with this. We got our Starline Brass and our bullets and our powder. We don't have to worry about resizing off the bat here. Might do a chamfer and deburr. But yeah, I'm looking forward to trying these out and seeing what we get out the gate. And I did have my powder chart here somewhere. Yes, Western Powders is kind enough to put a bunch of load data online, which is really cool. Thank you to them for doing so. So we've got Ramshot TAC here. Looks like 55 grain Hornady boat tail full metal jacket bullet. Start load of 24.5 for a velocity of 3159. Max load 27.3 with a max velocity of 3450. And our overall length as well of 2.20. Okay, so yeah, so that's good that at least we have some data here to kind of start with. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll start low, see how that works out, and then kind of I can stair step it up from there. We'll also check for accuracy as well as we kind of go through the process. I do have a 1:6 scope mounted on the rifle, so we should get, you know, reasonably decent accuracy with that whole setup. So we'll see. Anyways, folks, it's going to be fun. Leave any questions or comments down below. And anything good I'll incorporate into the next video. If you have questions or there's different cool comments you have, always cool to hear about it. And because I've reloaded for a long time, but now that this is all new to me with 5.56, hey, if you have other opinions or whatever, feel free to put them down below too. All right, folks, stay tuned for the next video coming up soon.